Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to call the regular Parks and Recreation Commission meeting to order for May 25th, 2011. Could we all rise for the pledge, please? Ready? Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McGill, would you call roll, please?
Chair Wiscombe.
Here.
Burns.
Here.
Case-Spear.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Longstreet.
Here.
Intern Yee. And Ferrara is not present.
Thank you, Ms. McGill. Ms. Rapp, any changes to the agenda?
One quick one, Chair. Staff would recommend that you take item number 9 on the Franklin Youth Drop-In Center before take item number 10 on the Franklin Youth Drop-In Center before item number 9, which is the department's budget.
Okay, fine. Now, will you please remind me if I forget to do that?
Yes, we will.
So it's going before 9. Okay, thank you. And any written communications that we need to discuss? Or no? Okay, fine. Anyone here for public comment? Any member of the public may address the commission for up to 1 minute on any subject within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not scheduled for a public discussion before the commission. Anyone here for public comment? Okay, seeing if there's no one, we'll close public comment. And we're going to move on to community service recognition. Ms. Rapp?
Chair Wiscombe and commissioners, we actually are going to add an item here. We would like to recognize one of our staff who was actually recognized at the Santa Barbara Athletic Roundtable Hall of Fame banquet on Monday evening, and Commissioner Case-Spear has agreed to do this presentation and recognition, and I will defer to him.
Shall I do it from here?
Certainly.
Okay. Mr. Hanna, why don't you come forward? Yeah. All righty. Good. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as a past president and current board member of the Santa Barbara Athletic Roundtable, I attended the Hall of Fame banquet this Monday, and one of our own staff, Rich Hanna, was honored with the R.F. McFarlane Award. And R.F. McFarlane was one of the original founders of Semana Nautica, and this was back in 1936. This award is given annually to a person or organization who best exemplifies community leadership in the area of sports and athletics. It's sponsored by City of Santa Barbara, Parks and Recreation Department, the local media, and the Semana Nautica Association. Rich Hanna is the perfect award winner for this. He's a man that contributes his time and energy to the athletics and youth of our community. We're better off today that he is here, and I'm very proud to present him with this award. But just a little bit about Rich. He came here to Santa Barbara from Wellington, New Zealand, and now he's a U.S. citizen, and he participates in club and high school sports such as swimming, soccer, tennis, basketball, rugby, track. When do you ever have time for? Yes, we'll talk to Sarah about that. And last Saturday morning, I was out on Stearns Wharf, and there was this big commotion going on, and it turned out there were about 40 of the new lifeguards getting training about jumping off of Stearns Wharf into the cold ocean, rescuing victims. And who was leading them? Rich. He's everywhere on the waterfront, anything to do with recreation. And so, on behalf of the Roundtable and Parks and Recreation, I'd like to present you Rich Hanna with this perpetual trophy, the R.F. McFarland Award. Congratulations. If you'd like, say a few words.
Thank you, Commissioner Casebear, Madam Chair and Commissioners. I'd be remiss if I didn't say a couple of words, but receiving this honor twice is certainly makes up for a lot of the hard work that I've put in. I moved here in 1993, like Chris said, and I was very fortunate to find work with the City of Santa Barbara as a beach lifeguard. 18 years later, I'm proud to call this community my home. I would not be standing here in front of you tonight if I hadn't found an employer in the City of Santa Barbara and the Parks and Recreation Department that has allowed me to not only live in this community, meet my wife Sarah, who gives me a lot of unconditional support going through all of these nonprofit boards and work and all the challenges that we all experience. And as this department's allowed me to work my way from beach lifeguard up to senior recreation supervisor, where I currently oversee aquatic sports and tennis programs. Working as the aquatic supervisor with Samana Nautica and the Roundtable, I've been blessed to meet a lot of these young athletes in this community, and I get to see them when they're youth. And as the incoming president of the Santa Barbara Athletic Roundtable, I can see the influence this department has on our youth, both in sports, athletics, and academics. And a lot of the kids that I see coming forward at our Monday luncheons are kids that not only have gone through our programs, but are kids that we actually go on to hire. And I'll give you two great examples of that. Molly Cahill, who competed at Santa Barbara High School in water polo, has gone to the White House 4 times, 3 times as a player and one time as a coach with the UCLA women's water polo program. And we're following up her legacy after she directed our junior guard program for 2 years with Kylie Nuschel, who's the standout water polo player who's on her way up to Stanford next year, and she'll be coming in as one of our new lifeguards and junior lifeguard instructors this year. So I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this department, the people in this community, you as commissioners. I'm proud of what we do every day. I look forward to doing it until I retire. I've got a long way to go. And I would just want to thank you again for this honor, and that's it. Thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Hanna. That's wonderful.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I would just like to say how much I appreciate all the work that Rich has done over the years and the innovations he's brought to the department. He really has always stepped up when we've needed him to in tough budget times, getting the pool cleaned when we run out of people and everything. So we all know what you do and appreciate it greatly. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
And our next community service recognition will be presented by Terry Brown, Recreation Supervisor with Youth Activities. Terry?
Good evening, Chair Wiscombe and Parks and Recreation Commissioners. As Nancy said, I'm Terry Brown, the Youth Activities Supervisor, and I have been overseeing the extravaganza ever since I've been here, which is 25 years. So a picture speaks 1,000 words. So in order to recognize our volunteers, I just thought I'd give a very brief slideshow. Nancy says I have to talk. Okay, these are the firefighters hard at work. We'll go back. These are the police officers hard at work. And this is part of the setup at Chase Paul Park. The firefighters and the police officers participate in setup, and the police officers bring their, what's it called, the truck that has all of their equipment when they do sobriety road checks, and that's what we use for the egg hunt. We try our best.
Overdose on chocolate, perhaps?
And these are extravagant firefighters. They bring the fire engine into the circle at Chase Palm Park, and they hand out stickers and hats. And the hats are frequently used for collecting eggs. And so that's really fun. And they also allow the kids, as you can see, to sit inside the fire engine and jump up and down on the truck. A little more setup. And every year we also have a volunteer bunny. We're never sure who's going to show up, and you would never know. And to the left are our volunteers from the Police Activities League. And to the right are some of our high school volunteers. And of course, it wouldn't. And of course, it wouldn't be an extravaganza if we didn't have a starter and a big, huge crowd of kids that run up over the berm at Chase Palm Park. He's going to knock somebody out someday. And I thought this was a cute slide. This is 2010, and then this year with a new hunter. Same family, new addition. And then, of course, a big extravagant thank you to our Police Officers Association, our Firefighters Association, and our volunteers. And as an FYI, the police officers and the firefighters equally contribute to the cost of the event and pay for all of the chocolate. We have over 75,000 chocolate-covered eggs. That's a lot of chocolate. And they also send all of their volunteers that they have available as well as their family and friends. So we're very, very appreciative. And I want to thank you for allowing us to honor them.
Amazing what you've done. 13 years and 75,000 eggs, and you take it from setup to completion and tear down at the end, and the kids have so much fun. And on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Commission and the department, we'd like to thank you for all your years of service, and obviously the kids are really, really happy. And yeah, and go ahead.
Okay. With us tonight we have Michael DePonce, who's president of the Firefighters Association, and
Hank Homburg.
Hank Homburg from one of the firefighters. And I would like to present this certificate to the Firefighters Association, and it's in honor of City of Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation Department Community Service Recognition, which is presented to the Santa Barbara Firefighters Association on May 25th, 2011, for support of the annual Extravaganza Easter egg hunt. Thank you so much.
Would you like to say something?
Yeah, just a couple quick words. Madam Chair and fellow Parks and Rec Commission members, my name is Mike DePonce. I run the charity fund. I'm not the president of the association. I don't want to take that honor away from Tony Paghetti. He's doing such a great job. But I just wanted to say a couple quick words that kind of echo what Rich said. Quite a few of the current firefighters have come through the Parks and Rec, different programs, myself included, as a child. And then I was employed as a kind of a counselor for special needs kids prior to my fire department service, and that's where I worked with Terry. And so there's quite a few of us that work through the ranks, as kids, and then again as an employees, and now continue our employment with the City of Santa Barbara in the fire service. So just wanted to stress the importance that what you see here today are potentially future firefighters and police officers and other city employees that are very valuable to the city. Like I said, I run the charity account, and what that means is throughout the year we have various fundraisers that we raise money, and our mission and our goal is to give 100% of those funds back into the community every year. I like to drain the account. Other guys don't like to do that, but that's the purpose of raising the money. So this is one of the events that we're able to sponsor with our efforts of the fundraising, and it's a special place in my heart because Terry contacted me some time back when money was kind of getting shuffled around, and she said, what do you guys think, you know, not only with the personnel the day of the event, but, you know, can you help out financially? And so we've been doing so ever since, and we're very grateful to be able to give back to the community and back to the city parks and rec department. And I just want to say thank you for all your service on the commission. It's appreciated by many.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I would also like to invite a couple of the police officers, Kristen Shamardella, come on up, and Eric, come on up. And in honor of your support for the extravaganza, we have a certificate. To the Police Officers Association, presented on May 25th for support of the annual extravaganza Easter egg hunt, and we can't tell you how much we appreciate your support every year, as well as your funding and your volunteers. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Oh, thank you.
Did you want to say a few words? Did you want to say a few words?
Just want to say thank you very much. And actually, we really enjoyed that event. We started doing that a few years ago when the city kind of ran out of some money to be able to do that. And I'm glad we were able to really step up and do that and work with the fire department to do that, because I've done it now for several years and been out there with the kids, and it's been a great experience. And I think that it's good to have that involvement with the community and let the kids and the parents communicate with us and the fire department, and it's been really a good experience. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And our next presentation will be made by our own Pete Leva, and it's for recognition of the annual Lower West Side Neighborhood Easter Egg Hunt volunteers. And before Pete starts, there are 16 different people who are being thanked and recognized. So if we could have those people come forward to the podium as Pete calls your name, and then we'll present the certificates as a group. So thank you very much.
Pete?
You do what you do. Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy, Madam Chair, and members of the Commission. I would like to, again, thank you for this opportunity to present on behalf of my section. I work with Neighborhood Outreach Services. One of the great jobs that I have is working with families and the youth here that we have and our community board members. And I really enjoy this job, and I thank you for this opportunity. At the Lower West Side Neighborhood Easter Egg Hunt, we held it at Parque de los Niños on April 16, 2011. As you can see here, the parents and the kids are ready to go. And before this event occurs, I'm stuck with the task of trying to get my volunteers to help put together the goodies for the 300 plus Easter eggs that we get from the donation that we receive from volunteers and staff like yourself in the community. So these are just some of the members at the Davis Center, and one of our little young volunteers are helping out. We also had some of our fellow commissioners there assisting us, Mr. Caseberg, Cesar Trujillo, some of our Alvida Kyoga, some of our past advisory members, some of our youth back there getting ready to hide the golden ticket egg. And these are the neighborhood youth that I brought here today, sitting in your presence. And without their help, I would be stuck with this tedious task of trying to hide all those Easter eggs. So luckily, they came out on a Saturday, okay? And I did not have to bribe them, but they came out on their own time and helped out. Let the hunt begin. So again, we had approximately 150 to 350 people at Parque de los Niños. And Bibi, you know that park. And it was amazing because I had two groups of youth. I had the 10, 11, 12 on one side, and then I had the little ones with all the mothers on the other side trying to rush to get their kids in there. And oh my gosh, it was a tedious task.
What was your injury rate?
None, thank goodness. I especially want to thank the Unity Shop for their raffle items that we had. We had 300 plus Easter eggs, 15 volunteers, 150 plus children, and we had 14 golden ticket winners, as you can see here. Special thanks to the Unity Shop staff, and I think Alvita is here today from her agency, Commissioner Chris Caseberg, Peter and Linda Barrett, Neighborhood Advisory Council, members Javier Limon, Sally Foxen, and also Dennis and Kathleen Smith. So again, I thank them very much for being here. And at this time, Madam Commissioner, I'd like to have the volunteers come to the podium. Come over here. Commissioner Caseberg.
So you're going to read the names and then she'll...
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you. And what I'm going to do is, again, I'd especially like to thank Mr. Caseberg. Every year he's out there, you know, trying to get people to help out. And again, I want to personally thank him for being there and being my right-hand man, wingman on this event.
Thank you, Pete.
I also like to have Alvita here. Without her support and donation every year, about a week, 2 weeks before, I'm sending her an email, and she's always come through for me with various donations and stuff, so thank you very much. And then is Tony here?
Tony is right there.
Okay. Tony, come on up.
Come on, Tony. Tony Pico.
Okay, Mr. Cesar Trujillo. And we forgot Cesar Trujillo. He's one of our new advisory board members, and he was there with his daughters helping out, and I appreciate your volunteerism. Thank you very much. Okay. Mr. Caseberg.
Thank you.
Cristobal. Where's Cristobal? Thank you very much. Emily Leva, thank you very much. I didn't have to bribe her. She came on her own time. Isabella Trujillo. Okay. Lupita Carucci. Right? Carachure. Miguel Sanchez. This is Juan Cerner. He's one of our city apprentices, and he's been there during many events. And again, I'd like to thank Juan Cerner for being here today for his brother. Peter Carachucci. Thank you, Peter. Rafael Gutierrez. Susanna. Susanna is always there when I need her. On a drop of the dime, she's there with me in the neighborhood if I'm handing out flyers. We have a community event. She's always there willing to donate her time and assist in the community, so thank you again. Tony Pico. And Tony was there and on crutches. He was there helping us fill the eggs, and he still managed to hide some Easter eggs, so thank you, Tony. Victoria Leva. Thank you very much. Let's see, Mrs. Trujillo, or first name? Viviana Trujillo. And Yoselin Vargas. Thank you very much.
On behalf of the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Parks and Recreation Department, we thank you all for your service. It's a fun event for 150 kids, and I know it's one of Commissioner K-Spear's favorite events. And do you have a spokesperson that would like to say a few words? Maybe Commissioner K-Spear would like to?
Okay, just quickly, because we have a full agenda this evening, but it just warms my heart to see these kids chase after those Easter eggs. It brings a lot of joy to the Lower West Side. This is an area that Pete and I and BB and a lot of people are focusing our attention on. This is kind of an island that needs to be recognized. We want to bring attention to these families and these kids because they deserve it, and we love them to death. We just appreciate you so much. So thanks for coming out, and we'll see you next year. Parque de los Niños.
And a special thanks to, first of all, we should say, and I think Pete said it, but Neighborhood Advisory Council participated. They're newly formed, so that's really great to see. And also a special thanks to Neighborhood Outreach Services.
And our next presentation will be made by Parks Manager Santos Escobar. Santos?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Wiscombe, and Commissioners. Today I'd like to recognize the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. On April 30th, we had a workday at Alice Keck Park in collaboration with the Mormons Helping Hand Project. This will be our second annual event, and I worked very closely with Scott Houston, President of Santa Barbara Stakes, Bishop Rob Ruth, Santa Barbara Ward, Tomas Obispo, the President of the Los Olivos branch, and Dennis Emery, the Mormons Helping Hands coordinator. And on that particular day, the day before that Friday evening, we had a major windstorm event. And on Saturday, we were going to have 2 large weddings take place. And we had set it up to do a lot of raking, and we actually did more raking than we thought we were going to do. And we just beautified that entire wedding area up. We planted 58 one-gallon containers in the Xeriscape garden to beautify that. And that particular Xeriscape garden on the corner of Michitorena and Santa Barbara Street was one of the first annual work days that we did work in that area. So the folks that showed up for the second annual got to see their hard work and all that beautification that we had done. We also went through and did a lot of weeding in the sidewalk area along Michitorena Street. And one of the other items that we did that is going to hopefully be a long-lasting reminder of the hard work of this group is we planted 7 15-gallon trees in the parkways where there used to be oleanders that we had to remove. And we planted some new trees there with the youth, and hopefully when they get to be my age, they'll get to come out with their kids and be able to say, guess what, we planted that 30 years ago, or whatever amount of time it takes for them to get to my age. And so all I can say is hats off. We had a great work day. Very just enthusiastic group. I mean, I've done a lot of work days with a lot of groups, and this one truly is one of the best. So at this time, I'd like for you to recognize these great folks.
We'd like to thank you all for your work. It's particularly exciting to see the trees go in on Michitorena. And I'm glad that it's the second annual. That means there'll be a third annual, I hope. So I'd like to present the certificates. Dennis Emery, thank you very much. And this one is for Bishop Bob Ruth. Thank you so much. and Scott Houston. And Tomas Obispo. Thank you so much. Would any of you like to say a few words? I'd be happy to. Okay.
Commissioners, we actually appreciate the opportunity to come within our congregations. We are very family-centric, family-oriented. We love to teach our children principles of work, and members often spend thousands of hours every year in community service of one sort or another, most of the time anonymously, but it's a lot of fun to get together once a year and put on yellow T-shirts and get together and do something a little more major in scope. Throughout the Santa Barbara area, we were at 7 or 8 different venues, including Santa Barbara Zoo, Monroe School, San Marcos High School, and as well as Alice Keck Park. And it's a lot of fun, and it helps to teach our children values. We appreciate being part of this community and love the opportunity to give a little something back. I do think there will be some youth who will be measuring themselves against those trees in the parkway. Thank you.
The commission and the department thanks you very much for your work.
We'll be back.
Thank you.
Leslie?
Yes, Mr.
I'd just like to compliment the Latter-day Saints Church and the example that you set for everybody in our community. You know, these are difficult economic times, and we're keeping our Parks and Rec ship afloat with the help of organizations and groups like yours. And I just want to compliment you for stepping forward. Also, the aspect of bringing the youth on board and giving them a job that they can finish and see the tangible results of. And also, as members of the public, you should go to Alice Keck Park. I was in there just Sunday, and it looks beautiful. And obviously, with your hard work, it's really improved a lot. So thank you very much.
Very well said, Mr. Casper. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to Commissioner Committee assignment reports. Before we do so, I would like to welcome Council Member Grant House, our liaison. Thank you for coming to our meeting. Okay, so do we want to, Ms. Longstreet, you want to start with you?
Yes. I attended the Neighborhood Advisory Council meeting, and it was our second meeting. We are moving forward. The group needs some time to coalesce, and we have a lot of education to do to all come together on the same page and move forward. But the group is anxious to tackle some projects and to look at the issues facing our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Mr. Burns, do you have something?
And actually, I have no reports.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Casper, do you?
Yes, I attended the Creeks Restoration and Water Quality Improvement Advisory Committee. And we had 2 reports, one on stormwater management by Autumn, and what's Autumn's last? Autumn Malanka. And she gave a very comprehensive report about how and where our stormwater goes and the importance of being conscious of what goes down storm drains and what goes down sewers. And then the other portion of the report came from Enforcement Officer Jim Rumley. He is the Creeks Division Enforcement Program Officer, and he gave examples of people pouring unsightful, awful, terrible things down storm drains. And, of course, any reasonable person would know that what goes in the storm drain goes into the ocean and has drastic consequences. So if anybody wants to contact the Creeks Division, there is a hotline, and that number, if you have a pencil handy, is 897-2688. This is a hotline where they will go out and investigate, cite, and stop whatever dumping into the storm drains. And that number, once again, is 897-2688, or just call the Creeks Division of the City of Santa Barbara. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. K-Spear. Ms. Jacobson?
Thank you, Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners. I attended the May 2nd meeting of the Santa Barbara Youth Council, and they discussed the Youth Leadership Banquet is going to be on May 26th at 6 p.m. and will be held at the Museum of Natural History. And they also held a special meeting on the 16th interviewing new members. Currently, there are 15 appointments split between schools, and there are 7 seniors leaving for college this fall. I sat through several interviews and was very impressed with the leadership and speaking skills of these students already possessed. The Youth Council also discussed a youth bus project that would make available transportation to youth to go to events. They researched a new van would cost $25,000 to $30,000 and are coming up with ideas to get donations or sponsors or maybe even a capital campaign. They also moved to have a party, an end-of-the-year party, an award banquet in my home on the 23rd, which we did do, and it was absolutely unbelievable. And I'd like to just give a special thanks to the people at Shalhoub Meat Company who delivered a Santa Barbara-style barbecue to you. It was their choice of chicken, tenderized, tri-tip, or both, which they brought the children both, or the young adults both. It was the best meat we ever had, and also they delivered rice, the best barbecue beans you ever had in your life. It was absolutely amazing, and they brought all the plates, all the utensils, set it up while the kids were at their meetings, so when they showed up at the house, it was all ready to go. And I think we had a really awesome time. And you can also have barbecue to you delivered to your home or your business. All you have to do is call 805-963-7733 and ask for LJ Shalhoub. One last thing is Katy Perry event is coming up in August, and the kids are doing a fundraising program to win. Someone can win 2 tickets to a meet and greet. All you have to do is buy a raffle ticket for $10. And you'll have that opportunity to win that. And the concert, I believe, is August 1st, and Youth Council has been selected to pick the winners. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobson. Okay, I just have a couple things. On May 5th, I attended the regular meeting of the Street Tree Advisory Committee, and we received an update from Mr. Downey, as we do every month, on code violation cases. We also reviewed the Santa Barbara Municipal Code, Chapter 1524, which is the main street tree code, or tree code that we use. One of the members of the committee had asked that we look at that over time to see what changes have been made, so we did do that. And then we reviewed and made site visits to the items that are on your agenda today. And just as a report, the subcommittee on the Youth Council proposal that we want to send to council, we're working on the bylaws now, but this subcommittee has met twice, and Ms. Jacobson and I have been present at both. So we're really making great progress on establishment of the bylaws for the Youth Council that will accompany the formal recommendation to City Council to establish the body. And we have another meeting coming up in another week and a half or so. So it's going really well. And that's all I have. So we'll move on to commission and staff communications. Ms. Rapp?
Chair Wiscombe, boy, Longstreet, it's been a while. Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, I have asked Jill Zachary to share a couple of items with you, and so we'll go to Ms. Zachary.
Chair Wiscombe and members of the Commission, a couple of things you have on your agenda. The fact that we've received an appeal on the 2 eucalyptus trees at 507 Brosian Way, and the City Council placed that appeal in the June 26th meeting. Since then, we've determined that we would be bringing back the 3rd tree. As the Commission might recall, you postponed a decision on the 3rd tree that will bring that back to the Commission at your June meeting, which is the subsequent day. And so we are working with the City Clerk's office and the appellants to actually reschedule the hearing, the appeal hearing, in the event that the 3rd tree is also something that needs to be discussed at Council. And we're looking at that scheduled at the end of July. Council still needs to make that change, but that's what we're looking at. So you'll have the 3rd tree in June, and then the appeal in July. And then very briefly, and I have a handout for you, and you will be receiving it via email. We'll be distributing it tomorrow. We are planning a community meeting on June 8th, Wednesday, June 8th, at Mackenzie Park in the adult building at 6 p.m. The purpose of this meeting is to have a discussion about the ficus trees on Upper State Street. As the Commission is aware, we have over a dozen trees on Upper State Street. Over the years, there have been a range of issues associated with the management and maintenance of them, given the infrastructure that we have surrounding those trees. We have lost a couple of those trees recently. It looks like we may need to be removing more soon. The Street Tree Advisory Committee has done a lot of work to come up with some recommendations. Before that comes to the Commission, we want to have a community meeting, talk about the issues that we're facing with those trees and some of the preliminary recommendations of the Street Tree Advisory Committee, so that when we come to the Commission, you also can hear some of the public input. And then the noticing for that is going out to the adjacent landowners within 500 feet of the 3,100 to 3,500 blocks of State Street, plus other interested parties that we know like to weigh in on tree issues. So once again, that is June 8th at 6 o'clock, and you will be getting the flyer at the conclusion of your meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zachary. Okay, we'll move on to the Youth Council report. Mr. Yee.
Thank you. So, as Commissioner Jacobson stated before, we had our end of the year dinner at Commissioner Jacobson's house. She graciously offered her house for the dinner, and it was a great event. We recognized hardworking volunteers on the Youth Council, and yeah, thank you. And for the 100 fundraising project, we raised $725, which we will use to send Youth Council members to leadership conferences in the country, or planning events. So that was a big plus. And we are interviewing new Youth Council members, and we will appoint new Youth Council members very soon. And on Thursday, we will have our youth leadership banquet. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Yee. Okay, let's move on to the consent calendar. Agenda item number 5 is summary of council actions. Do we need to discuss that? No. Okay, it's in your packet. Number 6 is approval of minutes. Recommendation that the Commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the regular meeting of April 27th, 2011. Does anyone have any discussion or concerns with the minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to move to approve the minutes as stated.
Second.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, carries unanimously.
I'll abstain.
Oh, okay, sorry, one abstention. Okay, excuse me. Now we're going to move on to Street Tree Advisory Committee items. Item 7A. Mr. Downey?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, item 7A is 52 Calle Capistrano. The tree is a Tipuana tipu tree that is about half the size that it will achieve. The applicant has had some problems with their water service related to the tree roots. Suspect that there's problems with the sewer line related to the tree roots, and it's beginning to lift the stone patio area adjacent to the tree. The Street Tree Advisory Committee reviewed the application and did a site visit. They determined that the eventual size of this tree is much too large for the space in this front yard, and recommend that the commission conditionally approve the tree. They recommend it be approved on the condition a tree that can achieve 25 feet height and spread, replace it.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Excuse me. We do have one speaker on this item. Does the commission, anyone have any questions for Mr. Downey? Okay, then we'll open it up to public comment. Peter, I'm not going to get this right. Mr.
Bruinkops.
Dave Bruinkops. Okay, fine. We can give you 2 minutes to speak on the item.
Okay, great. Well, thanks very much, Madam Commissioner, or Madam Chairperson and Commissioners. Anyway, first of all, I definitely want to replace this tree with another tree, and when Tim, I happened to be home when Tim came by with the group. I think some of you were there. I saw. Yeah, you were. Yeah. So anyway, and we were talking about which trees to would be appropriate. So I just wanted to state that I was looking at a couple trees. One called a marina. It's also known as a strawberry, and the other one is a crepe myrtle. Those were the two. And when I talked to Tim, it sounded like those were appropriate. Now, I'm pretty sure that's a whole other process to plant the new tree, but I just wanted to make sure you guys were clear that was my intention. And we love that tree. It keeps us shady and cooler in our house. And having listened to the earlier part of the meeting, I'm like, I'm not a tree killer, but I did want to make it clear to the council that I did intend on planting a new tree there. And it was, as Tim just stated, the reasons, just a more appropriate tree for the location. So that was pretty much it. And I thank you very much for your consideration.
Great. Thank you for coming out and speaking on behalf of that. We really appreciate that.
Yeah. By the way, if I may say, it's really fun to go to a meeting like this because there's so many government meetings you go to where it's less positive. And I mean, I'm going to walk out of here, floating out of here, just all the different all the recognitions you've had for the various parties here, and this must be a fun department to work for the city. so anyway, I really do. I do appreciate all your hard work. I really do. Yeah, and I want to find out about this commission, the youth council, because I have a daughter in high school, and I think she'd be very interested in becoming part of that. So maybe I'll get a chance to talk with Michael sometime.
Yeah, I'm sure Mr. Yee would love to talk to you about it.
So thank you all very much. Appreciate your hard work.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate them.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Longstreet.
I did go out and look at the tree yesterday, and it is in an inopportune location right by that water meter. And I would move that we accept the Street Tree Advisory Committee's recommendations for removal and replacement.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, carries unanimously. Great. So we'll move on to item B1, 2,400 to 3,000 blocks of De La Vina. Mr. Downey?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, the Street Tree Advisory Committee has been looking at these blocks of De La Vina for several meetings, and when they were reviewing these sites, these blocks, the parkway size changes from one side of the street to the other, from one block to the next, and there's a need for more trees in this area. So they asked to have this reviewed and have come up with the following recommendations. The idea is, since the parkway sizes vary, is to designate all of these trees for the entire section. And when it's appropriate to put a larger tree, we'll put a larger tree. When it's appropriate to put a smaller one, we'll put a smaller one. But it's in direct relation to the varying parkway sizes. We also have varying sized trees. Acrocarpus fraxinifolius is one of the large trees. Eucalyptus cinerea is one of the medium-sized trees. Eucalyptus leucoxylon is one of the larger trees. Eucalyptus torquata is one of the small trees. Lagerstroemia indica natchez is a named variety that only has white flowers. It's one of the small trees. Melaleuca staphyloides is one of the larger trees. Podocarpus gracilior is one of the larger trees, and Stenocarpus sinuatus is one of the small trees for that block. The Street Advisory Committee would like to recommend each of these trees be designated for the entire length.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Downey. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Mr. Casebeer.
So, Mr. Downey, these trees will be, we aren't going to go in and replace every tree in this area. It's just as needed. As time goes by, we'll be using this list of trees, and that's what we're approving today.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Casebeer, whenever we make species designation changes for sections of streets, that is always for future plantings. There are no current plans to remove any trees in this section.
I just want to make a comment. I'd like to thank the department and particularly Mr. Downey and the Street Tree Advisory Committee. They worked really hard on this list, and a lot of thought and just a lot of thought. And I think we actually walked the site several times just to really make sure went into this list. And I think it would make a pretty exciting corridor as it gets developed. Yes.
And it does need some trees.
Yes, it does. Ms. Longstreet.
But I would move that we accept this list as provided by the Street Tree Advisory Committee for the blocks, the 2,400 to the 3,000 blocks of De La Vina Street.
Second that.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We're moving on to B2, the 200 to 400 blocks of West Valerio. Mr. Downey?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, a couple of months back we had a removal request in the along the stretch of West Valerio, and when the Street Advisory Committee visited the area, they determined there's a need for shade trees in the area. The current designation for this section of street is Queen Palm, but the parkway sizes would support other trees as well. The committee recommends that the sweet shade you see here be co-designated for these sections to help provide some shade for those blocks.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. I'll open it up to the Commission. Anyone have comments or questions? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I'll move to adopt staff's or the Street Tree Advisory Committee's recommendation to adopt the sweet shade tree for 200 to 400 blocks of West Valerio.
You can't make that motion till you give us the botanical name for the tree. No,
Don't worry, Chris, I'll second it.
Okay, the motion's been seconded. Is there any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously. And the last item on our list is the 3100 block of Lucinda Lane. Mr. Downey.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, I'll attempt the botanical names. That was Hymenospermum flavum. For the 3100 block of Lucinda Lane, the Street Tree Advisory Committee also recently reviewed a tree removal request in this area. The existing trees are, the current designation is Gygera parviflora, which is called Australian willow. It is not doing very well up there. So their interest is to change to a different species that might work better in these locations. They determined that Melaleuca linearifolia, flaxleaf paperbark tree, is a good candidate to give a try in this location and recommend it be designated.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Comments, discussion, questions? Motion? Mr. Burns?
Yeah,
Okay.
go right ahead.
I move that we go with staff's recommendation to change, is that correct?
Change, yes.
The designated street tree from the Australian willow to the flaxleaf paperbark.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Downey. Okay, we are moving on to item number 8, Mackenzie Park Parking Lot Stormwater Infiltration Project. Could you make the name any longer, Mr. Benson? Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Cameron Benson. I'm the manager of the city's Creeks Division. I'm here with Tim Burgess, who is a water resources specialist with the Creeks Division and the project manager for this project. Today we'll be presenting the Mackenzie Park Parking Lot Stormwater Infiltration Project. As most of you know, urban runoff is the single largest source of water pollution in the city of Santa Barbara. And so the purpose of this project is to improve stormwater runoff from the Mackenzie Park parking lot, which contains hydrocarbons, sediment, metals, and nutrients. And we're going to do that by treating the water before it reaches Arroyo Burro Creek and the ocean. This is also intended to serve as a demonstration project showing a low-cost and low-maintenance way to retrofit an existing parking lot and to comply with the city's stormwater management program requirements. The proposed project is really a simple design. It involves removing existing asphalt from the parking lot and installing permeable pavers in the footprint of the existing parking spaces, as well as in some new parking spaces at the northern end of the parking lot. We're actually moving from 69 to 75 spaces. And we're going to also install permeable pavers in a portion of the decomposed granite path that leads from the parking lot to the Mackenzie Adult Building. In addition to that, we're proposing to install 2 new tree planters and trees in the middle of the main parking rows of the parking lot. And I'll show an aerial photo here that will hopefully make that a little bit clearer. As you can see, this is the outline of the existing parking lot. We're just looking at the lower lot, not the lot up by the Lombol's building. The existing parking areas are here, here, and here. All of those will be filled with permeable pavers inside of the parking areas. This is the new row of spaces that will be added. And this is the area of the walkway that will be replaced with the permeable pavers. The driving areas in the parking lot will remain as asphalt driving areas. And then we looked at 2 different planter designs. This is the one that we're going to be going with and that the ABR liked as well. So we will be adding trees. Mr. Downey is going to select the tree species to plant in the 2 planter boxes. We'll also add a tree to this end cap here that doesn't currently have a tree as part of the project. And then I just wanted to note that our project timeline is to go to construction this summer. We're looking at August 22nd to September 2nd, a 2-week construction period.
That for Mackenzie Park is almost the only window during the year where we don't have very heavy use in that park. So we're after the various summer camps and the horticultural sale, and we'll get in and get it done just before we start fall ball in September. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benson. It's pretty exciting. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Yee?
Mr. Benson, how will adding new parking spaces contain the pollutants?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioner Yee. Adding the new parking spaces in and of itself doesn't contain the pollutants. What the design does is currently in this parking lot, water sheet flows across the surface of the lot to a drop inlet that's right over here, and then goes into the storm drain system. And so what we will do is we will cut out the existing asphalt here, excavate down into that asphalt, fill it with gravel, and then put the permeable pavers on top. So as the water flows across the surface of the lot, it will sink down into those areas and infiltrate into the soil, which will filter and treat the pollutants. And then the remaining water, once those are filled, the remaining water will just flow into the drop inlet. So the overflow will be into the drop inlet, but we'll treat through the soil the pollutants from the lot.
There was a good description in here in the report, and it's that I thought said it all. If you don't understand exactly how you get, but it is mimicking pre-development conditions. So it's bringing it back to the time when it can permeate through the soil before all the asphalt was put down. So personally, I'm very happy to see the trees being added. I assume they're going to be shade trees. I think that's very exciting. One of my questions was the selection of trees, but Mr. Downey's going to do that. So this is an amazing low-cost solution. I just wanted to know, are you by any chance pulverizing the asphalt or not that you're removing?
The specifications for this project will require recycling of the asphalt.
Okay, great. Okay. And are there other sites, this is my only other question, are there other sites in the city where the low-impact development can be used if this is successful here? Is this a pilot? Or
Madam Chair, this is designed to be a demonstration project. We selected this site because of the kind of standard nature of the shape of the lot. It's low groundwater. We're not near any contaminated areas, but it also is similar to a lot of lots in the city, city-owned lots, both downtown and in locations and parks and other city facilities. So the idea is to create a design that could be used as a model for other lots.
Great. That's what I was hoping to hear. That's wonderful. So it's an amazing low-cost solution. Mr. Burns, yes.
Just one question. Once this is done, which sounds like it'll be September, do you think it'll be 3 months or 6 months before you'd be able to come back and kind of explain, now that it's done, what worked and what didn't work and what would we do differently?
Madam Chair and Commissioner Burns, that's a great question. What we do with all of our projects in the Creeks Division is we sample water quality in these areas prior to doing the project, and we'll sample it after the project. This one is a little bit interesting because after the project, at least for small rain events, there shouldn't be very much runoff at all. It should go down into the soil and recharge the groundwater and treat the water that's running off. But we have actually gone out and measured, at what level of rainfall do we start having runoff. We're going to be able to determine how much water we're capturing in these locations. So probably by the time we get through our first rainy season, so next spring, we'll have a pretty good sense of the quantity of water we've been able to capture and whether it actually met the engineer's measurements and the treatment levels, and we'll have a good sense of how effective it is at a water quality treatment project.
Yes, Mr. Byrne?
And the other part of the question is, we're assuming it's going to cost about $120,000 once it goes to contract. There's an annual maintenance cost right now of the parking lot to see where it will be in a year with having pavers. I want to make sure that as we're showing people how inexpensive it is, we want to be able to show them that on the holistic approach, that year after year, it still is an inexpensive method to go. And I want to bring that back to the when you come up back with your report in the spring.
Thank you.
Good point. Yep. Anyone else? Thank you very much. Very exciting.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing that implemented. Okay. We're going to move on to item number 10. I did it correctly this time. The Franklin Drop-In Center update. Ms. Rapp?
And Chair Wiscombe and Commissioners, and I'm going to apologize to staff because I may step on their toes and steal some of their thunder, but I really wanted to give you a bit of history about how this concept came to be, recent history, and I know staff is going to talk about longer history, but in particular, I want to recognize at this time the efforts of the Franklin Advisory Committee, who began seriously talking about how to have more teen activities and a teen center, if you will, at the Franklin Neighborhood Center. And they really brought that discussion forward. They brought it forward to a commission level, through the budget process, through the council level, through the budget process. And the level of discussion finally, and it does take a long time for government to process things. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It just takes government intentionally a long time to make things happen. And finally, the project was approved for funding, and you will hear about this. But I really wanted to thank those individuals who came together and talked about what do we need to provide more services for the youth in our community to combat gang and youth violence. And this was one of their highest priorities. So I know I stole some of your thunder, but presenting this report tonight is Ricardo Venegas with our Neighborhood and Outreach Services staff, and I apologize.
Before I begin, I want to introduce our new Youth Center coordinator, Carmen Garcia. She comes to us with several years of experience working out of the City of Santa Maria's Parks and Recreation Department. So we're very excited to have her join our team. She has some very excellent ideas that we're looking forward to seeing that get developed at the Franklin Center Youth Drop-In Center. So with that, we'll go ahead and begin. And I'll let Carmen say a few words in a minute. A little bit of history on the services at the Franklin Center. The facility opened in 1975, and it was open to provide services to our low-income community. And since then, we've had several tenants, including the Santa Barbara County Health Clinic, and it's also been the home for the Parks and Recreation Department's Community Services section, now known as Neighborhood and Outreach Services. So the need for a youth drop-in center dates back to the opening, and unfortunately due to several priorities, primarily budget and the limitations with space, we weren't able to provide all those services. But the purpose remains the same, and that is to provide recreational services, social services to the youth and the families, and also to have a facility that is a place for youth and families to gather and have engaging activities. It also focuses on some of the goals that we have as a city, as a department, and that is the reduction of youth crime and violence in the community. as Nancy mentioned, in 2009, the Franklin Center Advisory Committee came together, and with the assistance of the Neighborhood Improvement Task Force, we applied for a grant through CDBG monies, and we successfully got the money, got the funding, and the total amount of the grant was $25,000. Construction of the Youth Drop-In Center began in January of this year. The project basically called for the modification of existing office space that was left vacant, and it also included the removal of several walls. Right here in this photo, you can see two of the walls right in front of you. The one with the wood paneling was removed, the right portion of it, and also the one to the left. And behind those walls, we have empty spaces or offices that were left vacant. And the photo on the bottom shows my new office. I actually used to be in the office right there where we have the wooden paneling. So we moved around some of the existing space in order to create the youth center. And the way the space is now is we have 3 rooms that were added to the big office right there, as well as the use of the multi-purpose room for the drop-in center. So it's a lot more practical. We're going to get a lot more use out of the entire room. We'll be able to service a lot more youth. But it included also removal of carpeting, removal of the old broken down tile that we had in some of the offices, as well as some of the flooring, and also the wiring had to be redone. In one of the rooms we installed an internet computer room. So we had to do a recabling of the entire room area. We finished up with a fresh coat of paint for the entire room, or 4 rooms in this case. And the space looks just fabulous. It's everybody that comes in, they get the initial wow, what happened here. So it's a very, very, very nice center. So this is what it looks like right now. It's still in development. The project was completed in April with a total cost of $25,000, and that was just for the basic modification of the existing space. At the moment, we're developing programming. We're also actively seeking contributions. We're looking for a nice pool table to go right in the middle. We've already gotten a few donations. And we also were able to inherit some of the equipment from the teen center, including some of the computers, as well as popcorn machines and a few other things. But we have people in the community that are already volunteering. They want to be a part of it. And they're helping us with developing some of the programming that we want to see come out of that particular area. Some of the existing activities that we have are the Arts Alliance, which is a group of youth that does a lot of graffiti abatement along Milpas Avenue, as well as through community service projects like mural creation, mural development. We also are in the process of establishing a computer room where we're going to offer workshops that will include computer repair, Photoshop, digital graphics, and so forth. So there's a lot of activities that we are, again, in the planning stages. In addition to that, we have a lot of different partner agencies that are providing services. One of them is the Santa Barbara Food Bank. They're assisting us by providing us with a after-school nutrition program. So what they're doing is they're bringing over healthy snacks. So we're looking at serving anywhere between 25 to 30 individuals on a daily basis with nutrition, as well as other different services. We also have a group in the community that's bringing 10 to 15 youth every Thursday to meet with them and offer them advice, counseling, pep talks, and a variety of different other resources. So it's coming together. We hope that by the time we're up at 100%, we'll be hopefully serving 30 to 40 on a daily basis. So we're very, very excited to be able to do this for the youth in the community. The Franklin Center is going to have its ribbon cutting on June 16th at 10 a.m. at the Franklin Center. So I invite the commission and members of the public to come out and join us on June 16th at 10 a.m. and hopefully we'll have a few more programs that we can share in more detail with everybody. The the neighborhood outreach services section is also having a lot of different events, and before I close, I want to take this opportunity to share some of those with you, and also personally invite you to come out and join us at some of these events. This coming Saturday, we have an e-waste computer electronics collection event. It's going to take place at the Davis Center. It's going to be from 8 to 4 p.m. And then again, we're having another one on June 11th, and this is going to be at UCSB, or actually in Ivy, and it's going to be from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. And these are all in collaboration with UCSB, the Early Academic Outreach Program, and also the associated students. We also have a job resource and information fair that's going to take place on June 1st. And this is going to be at the Lower West Side Parque de los Niños. So please come out and join us for that. We're also having a park and mural ribbon cutting on June 9th at 5 p.m. at the West Side Community Center. The children's park that's there recently got renovated, and we also had the Santa Barbara Arts Alliance install a 150-foot long mural. It's a seascape mural, and it's a mural that's going to help with the ongoing graffiti vandalism. So please join us for that event as well. It's going to start at 5 p.m. And I want to mention also that the Moose Lodge has graciously agreed to sponsor a barbecue for the community on that day. So it'll be hamburgers and hot dogs plus drinks. So again, please join us. If you need additional information, you can call us at the Westside Community Center at 963-7567. And we can give you information on any of these events. And I'm going to leave a handout with more detailed information for the commissioners as well. So with that, again, the Youth Drop-In Center, we're very excited to finally get that going. So I hope you can join us. It's going to be a wonderful event, and it's going to go a long way in minimizing a lot of the vandalism, a lot of the criminal activity that happens in the neighborhood. It gives us a tool to basically bring the kids in and keep them off the streets. So I really want to thank the Franklin Center Advisory Committee and the Neighborhood Improvement Task Force and all the people that came together to make this happen. So it's been a long time in coming, but finally it's here and it's materialized, so we're very excited. So again, please join us on the ribbon cutting for that.
Thank you, Mr. Venegas, and congratulations. I think it's really exciting. And welcome, Ms. Garcia. It's great to have you on board. Do commissioners have comments?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome, Carmen. And thank you, Ricardo, for all the work you do. And really, we're still pretty blessed to live in a community where you can reach the kids one at a time. And you know who they are, and you've done a lot of outreach, and I really appreciate all the hard work you've done, because, each kid that you've touched, I think it's made a difference in their lives, and I really do appreciate it. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all program, so I do think it's important that we have these variety of programs. There can't be just a single teen center and us expect that to meet everybody's needs. So I think having things in the neighborhood with people that are trusted in the community is really important. And I hope as we go forward that we can do this more, and that we can keep it going and healthy. So really appreciate all the work you've put into it, the committees have put into it. And, I look at this and it's a $25,000 expenditure. As we go through these budget times, that's pretty good value. So I think that we have to shout it out to the community and to our elected officials that all the good work that's being done. in the neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Casebeer?
Carmen, were you going to say a few words? I'd love to hear what your visions are and what the future might bring.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Well, I'm very excited, first of all, to be here and to start working for the City of Santa Barbara. And for this youth center, one of the things that I envision is the enriching activities, the outreach, getting connections through the schools and the community around the Franklin Community Center, and implementing those and providing the different services, the variety. I think that's one of the important things that Ricardo and I were discussing, and it's something that I'm very excited about, and working through that and getting the teens around there and coming into the center even more.
Well, that's great. One thing that Ricardo mentioned, the interaction that you're establishing with the food bank, I think it's just brilliant, because if you feed these kids, they will come. And after school, I don't know any teenager that isn't starving to death. So you give them some healthy snacks, and you'll get them in the door, and then you can get them involved in good, healthy projects. And also, it sounds like you still have some needs for equipment and such, and I encourage you to publicize that list, or bring that list back to this commission, and we'll reach out into the community, or I personally will help you reach out into the community. If you need a pool table, well, we'll find you a pool table, or ping pong, or whatever to keep these kids.
We'll get that email out tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah.
Commissioner Casebeer, I think that was exactly my thought. Feed them and they will come. Definitely. I think that is a brilliant approach, and healthy snacks are a good way to go anyway. So, anyone else? Okay, thank you very, very much. This is really exciting to see, and we will look forward to more reports on the drop-in center and its progress. Thanks for coming. Okay, we have one last item on the agenda, which is the budget, and I'm wondering if someone wants to take a quick break, or is everyone all right? Okay, let's take a let's take a very quick break, like 3 to. Okay, good afternoon. We're reconvening the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, and we're on to agenda item number 9, which is Parks and Recreation Department fiscal year 2012 and 2013 budget. Ms. Rapp, did you have anything to say? Because, I mean, I can go through the...
Thank you, Chair Wiscombe. Yes, I thought I would give some introductory comments. The action for the Park and Recreation Commission tonight is to develop their recommendations to City Council. You have several funds that you need to make specific recommendations on, if nothing more than recommend adoption of the proposed XYZ. The funds include the Golf Fund, the Creeks Fund, the General Fund, the Capital Program, and the proposed fees and charges schedule. So each of those need to be included in your motion or various motions. I did want to note to you that you do have and already received recommendations from 2 advisory committees. The Creeks Advisory Committee recommendations were in your original first budget packet, and the Golf Advisory Committee you received when you received the golf budget. There is one change that we are making to the budget that doesn't involve any change in funds, but we are working with the Finance Department to combine 2 of the recreation programs. 6121, which is facilities and special events, and 6131, which is cultural arts. And we are combining those two. They are two programs that are now, because of all of our budget cuts and reorganizations, supervised by the same person. They're the same types of activities having to do with facility and park rentals. So we are, for convenience sake and simplification, combining those two programs. So you don't need to say or do anything about that because there's no change in the funding, but when you get your final budget documents, I just want you to know what happened if you see the changes. And I did also want to just announce the upcoming meetings of the City Council where budget will be discussed. So the next one will be Thursday, June 2nd at 9 a.m. in Council Chambers. This is where Council will receive all of the follow-up information that they have requested from staff, and they will receive the recommendations from the Finance Committee. And they will then develop their recommendations to staff to complete the proposed budget. And then on Monday, June 6th, Council has a tentative meeting scheduled if they need more time to deliberate on their options to achieve some of the things that they want to achieve. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about adding police officers, so I'm guessing that will be a substantial part of the discussion. So on Monday, June 6th at 9 a.m., and that meeting is scheduled, but it's still tentative. It may or may not be held. And then on Thursday, June 9th, Council will be having a meeting, but another budget work session, but the focus will be RDA. Staff will give a presentation on the current status of RDA, and Council will be reviewing the current appropriations of RDA funding for various projects and discussing the priorities for other RDA funds if in fact those funds will continue to be available to the city. So that's Thursday, June 9th at 9 a.m. And then the budget adoption is scheduled for Tuesday, June 21st. So a lot of important meetings coming up related to the city's budget. And
Ms. Rapp, may I interrupt you for 1 sec? What are the venues for the June 6th and June 9th meeting? Are they both in council chambers?
All of the meetings that I mentioned will be held in council chambers. Thank you for asking that.
Thank you.
And beyond that, staff is prepared to answer any questions that you have on the budget, and if we can help in developing your recommendations, we're happy to do that. Please just let us know.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, if no one objects on the commission, I would just like to, I think, if we can start with the creeks and then move to golf, and then capital fund, and then move on to general fund, if in that order. Does that work for everyone? Okay, good. Okay, so let's start with creeks. Does anyone have any discussion or comments? Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we would accept the Creeks budget as proposed with the recommendations of the Creeks Advisory Committee.
I second that.
And just in comment, it seems like we're going fast, but Creeks has a whole advisory committee, has a whole system of funding, and it's really well handled. Mm-hmm. All of the department is, but that is, not an area I think that we meddle in. They take care of business.
They've had almost $10 million in grants since 2002. So
And they have a
let's see.
dedicated stream of funding,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, exactly.
We should all be so blessed.
Okay, so we have a motion, and we have a second to the motion, and is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that carries unanimously. Okay, let's move on to the golf fund, and I think we can include the proposed new fees and charges when we're talking about the golf fund. So,
I
yes,
just
Ms.
wanted to say,
Longstreet.
I know I missed last meeting, but I did watch the meeting on TV, and I also watched the presentation to council, and including the golf. You know, I've been on this commission a long time, and I remember years ago when golf was flush and we were not, and we borrowed money from them. And I would just like to say that at this point in time, I think the city general fund owes the support back to the golf course to keep it going and healthy. That I'm pleased to see the recommendations given. I think they were well thought out. There's some risk involved, as you pointed out, but I think it's a risk that should be backed by the city, because there have been times when we have asked for things back from the golf course. So I am very supportive of giving them the opportunity to turn things around. I think many of the effects on the golf course, none of the effects on the golf course were due to any problems in the golf course. So it was a combination of projects, weather, and the economy. So we have a jewel of a golf course, and I'm very proud of what it looks like and how it's managed. So I would support the recommendations.
Yeah, does anyone else have any comments? I fully agree with Commissioner Longstreet's comments. And the Golf Advisory Committee has really worked very hard. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Yee on the proposed fees, because without his coming forward to the Advisory Committee to discuss reductions in fees for youth, which is an important element, that may have not taken place. So I'm particularly excited about that, and hope we see more youth out on our golf course. And the maintenance pro shop and concessions really have been working very closely together on solutions to improve the golf experience and increase rounds and revenues. And I agree with Ms. Longstreet that the general fund should support this. We do having a municipal golf course is great for our citizens of Santa Barbara. And unfortunately, I think it was a perfect storm of a construction project and a downturn in the economy that's made it difficult. 2012 will be challenging to broaden our field of players and improve rounds and revenues, but I think we've really got to support them. You know.
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Longstreet, just for the sake of somebody watching this presentation that didn't hear the golf budget presentation, I'd like to clarify that the golf budget does not include any designated funding from the general fund.
Right.
So the reference is more about the renegotiation of the construction loan that did come from the general fund, in which the golf course will be paying back as we have other loans in the past. So I just want to make sure that people don't come to the wrong conclusion. The golf course is still an enterprise fund that operates off of the revenue generated at the golf course. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, that's a good clarification. Anyone else? Okay, do I have a motion? This would be for the golf fund with the proposed fees and charges.
I so move that we accept the golf budget as presented and the fees and charges changes.
Second.
Okay, any other comments, discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that carries unanimously. Okay, let's move on to the capital fund. Does anyone have any specific comments? I have one specific comment on this particular item. When I was present at one of the city council meetings where the budget was for the capital fund was being presented and the Chase Palm Park playground replacement project came up, the $200,000 for that, and Mayor Schneider wanted to pursue use of RDA funds for that possible use of RDA funds for that project, and I would like to see the commission make a recommendation that if that particular item does get RDA funding, that the allocated $200,000 go into one of our other much-needed projects in the city. And Ms. Zachary, do you have comments on that?
Chair Wiscombe and members of the commission, we have identified Chase Palm Park Playground as obviously in the RDA zone and potential for RDA funding. We have a number of other projects that we're currently working on that currently only have general fund support and are not in the RDA zone. One of those projects, which the commission will hear a presentation on in July, is the replacement of the lower segments of the Mesa Lane stairs. So those are the stairs that reach the beach at the end of Mesa Lane. We just received our draft 30% preliminary plans for that project, and we're planning to submit for planning and environmental review this summer. The proposed budget, 2-year budget, includes potential funding, partial funding for construction of the project. We don't have full funding. We anticipate construction will be about $600,000. So that's an example of a project the commission may want to consider. That will be ready to go, that is needed, that does provide public benefit, and we have always intended to try to find grant funding for that, and we would still try to do that. However, as you know, in this climate, sometimes it's more difficult if it's not a water quality or creek restoration project to acquire those funds.
And Ms. Zachary, if you wouldn't mind, can you highlight some of the other projects that council will be hearing about on June 9th that are department projects that are in the RDA zone and we have proposed for RDA funding if in fact there are funds available?
Happy to. Chair Wiscombe and members of the commission, we submitted a range of projects, including the playground. We also submitted a request for funding for Cabrillo Ball Field. The commission had an extensive meeting discussion about that, and we wanted to have that discussion at the commission and the public so that we could refine a proposal to RDA. We've estimated that project, if we were to do everything we might think it is on the order of $850,000, not including deciding what happens in the western area. So we've submitted that. Then we've also submitted the second phase of the Cabrillo bathhouse renovation. We do have RDA funds to conduct the facility assessment. We're about to hire a consultant for the business plan Once that's done, which we expect will be done by the end of the calendar year, we need to move into preliminary design and permitting. So we requested $250,000 for that. And then lastly, Chase Palm Park, we love that park. Everybody loves that park, and so it's showing wear and tear in a lot of different ways. So we did ask for another $350,000 for other park-related repairs that are sorely needed. So those are 4 projects that we prioritized for consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Zachary. So I think when we're discussing the capital fund, I'd like to talk about a recommendation to City Council to perhaps use the $200,000 somewhere else for a park project, and whether the Commission believes it would be the Mesa Lane steps or Ms. Longstreet.
My question is, is it best to identify a project or to refer to our extensive capital need list, which we, as I recall, have a bazillion projects on? Which way, and part of this is, I don't want council to look at it and go, well, you know what, I just can't get behind Mesa Lane steps right now, so the money's gone. When, we have so many things that staff can bring forward, which one is how's it better to do it? Ms. Rapp, can you guide us on this?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Longstreet, I would think that the stronger position for the Commission would be to recommend a particular project, only because Council will be giving staff direction to finalize the budget. And so at this point, they need to be indicating that level of detail. I do think that it's a good idea, as you presented the language, to indicate that it is one of many unfunded deferred maintenance projects in the city. Ms. Zachary and I have also talked in reviewing all of our projects. It's actually, I think, would have a higher level of priority because it is a project that does have some current funding and is, in fact, underway. So it just helps that project to have a greater likelihood of being completed sooner.
Are you referring to the Mesa Lane steps?
The Mesa Lane steps. And I think that much of this will come down to the discussion that Council has on June 9th about RDA and what the future of that is.
Can I ask another part of this question? Having watched the police presentation and having heard the $200,000 for the playground be addressed as part of their, if that could be moved to RDA, that money may be used from our playground project, go back into the general fund and be used as the homeless outreach project at the PD. This isn't dedicated capital fund, it is general fund money?
Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Longstreet, to my recollection, the mayor actually inquired whether the $200,000 that was dedicated for Chase Palm Park could qualify for RDA funds, and then she did suggest that the funds could be used for another one of the Parks and Recreation projects. That discussion did take place as part of the council discussion of the police budget and trying to look for opportunities to fund other city priorities. So I just wanted to add that clarity. So your specific question about it's in the $200,000 is proposed to be spent in the capital budget. It's general funds that are proposed to be spent as capital, and could they be shifted over to be spent on operations? And the answer is yes, they could. It's one-time money. So, as I understand it. So but yes, because it's all general funds. And that's why we've seen over the years as we've had to make reductions, we've moved money out of capital in the general fund. We've moved money out of capital and into operations to help us through these difficult times. So
how does the commission feel about? I have two schools of thought. One is we listen to a lot of very excited community members, business owners talk about possible improvements at Cabrillo Ball Fields. 200,000 isn't going to do it. I mean, you can look at it and know it's not going to do it. But I'm thinking in terms of the community and the outreach that's going on and the outcry also that's going on in that particular area. Maybe the commission wants to go that way, even though that's in the RDA pool right now. I look at the Mesa Lane steps outside of the RDA and zone, and if you haven't been down the steps, go down all 241 of them, because when you get to the bottom of them, they are in really bad shape. And it's not the fault of the Parks Department and maintenance. It's just the Mother Nature and the waves, and they really do need to be fixed. So I'd just like to hear your comments on that. Yes, Mr. Burns.
Maybe a month ago, I walked down the Mesa Lane steps, and the issue is that one day, maybe soon, it'll be boarded up and nobody will get to use them. If we wait too long, it will be very expensive. I would rather put our recommendation to repair that. Nothing, I mean, Cabrillo Park, the ball field needs help too, but at least there's a park across the street. That's where I would that's where I would say we should go. I still realize that every year, as I've listened, City Council generally seems to think that capital improvements are something that can always be put off for another year. But I'm hopefully this year that won't happen.
I echo your comments on Mesa Lane steps, and if they continue to be put off year after year, they will be boarded up eventually. And the fact that the project is already it's in the works and it is advancing, this just helps it advance that much quicker. I don't know. Mr. Casebeer, yes.
I, too, support Mesa School steps, the need to keep it's a vital entrance to the coast, provides recreation for young and old alike. And I think this might be an opportunity. Could we have a naming opportunity if we found a benefactor with a sizable amount of money?
I think Chair Wiscombe and Commissioner Casebeer, that's always an opportunity. It's a city, so it's not as easy as one would expect, but it's always an opportunity, and we appreciate the interest and the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have some ideas.
Yes.
I'm going to take a stab at a motion.
Great.
Here. That we accept the recommendations in the capital fund, and if RDA money is available for the improvements
Chase Palm Park.
at Chase Palm Park, the commission strongly recommends that the money be used at Mesa Lane steps, to continue the project and give leverage for grant funding in the future. And as a comment, I would like to say that the Commission continues to be concerned about the lengthy capital projects in our parks and lack of funding. Just
second.
because I think we should say that all the time.
I'll second that motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Is your motion, does it include approving the capital fund project budget?
We accept the budget.
Okay. You did
And
say
with,
that. Okay.
yeah, with
okay.
the blah, blah, blah,
With
blah.
the strong recommendation. Okay. That's great. So motion second, no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you. Glad we got through that. Okay. Now we move on to the general fund, and please keep in mind when we're discussing the general fund, it also includes proposed fees and charges. So if I may just make just kind of an opening statement about this. Again, when I was at one of the council meetings, our liaison, Council Member House, asked me very specific question about the Commission's concerns for deferred maintenance in our parks. I did not answer the question succinctly, and I have given a lot of thought to it. We've had a lot of discussions about deferred maintenance in our parks in a lot of different commission meetings, but I think this is the time to bring forward some recommendations that address deferred maintenance and ways to, at least we're getting some ideas in front of council on how to maybe improve the situation and get more maintenance in our parks and civic spaces. So there's several recommendations that I had. I don't know how we want to discuss them. Do you want me to go through them now, or should we do it when we're discussing the general fund? Does anyone have a preference? Okay. Well, I'll go through them. The administration budget has, as proposed, has money to assess and develop a comprehensive parks volunteer program, something that we don't currently have. Our parks department sponsors volunteer events and volunteer days, but I think there is a great opportunity to create a comprehensive parks volunteer program. And the program actually could help offset staff reductions and support park maintenance services. And that's not to say that they're going to be out there on lawnmowers, but there are basic maintenance tasks that can be performed by volunteers that are currently performed by park staff. So the problem with actually developing the comprehensive program, it's not in the development, it's in the implementation. So I guess a further recommendation would be that the City Council, that the Commission would make a recommendation that the City Council support staff additions in FY 2013 and future years to implement the Parks Volunteer Program. So I thought those was something that we could look at and see how you all felt about that. Another one is to recommend to the City Council that they authorize establishing standard design guidelines to be used in the design of public spaces. And the guidelines would have aesthetic benefit, yet be easy to maintain. And the reason why we need to do this is because we have other boards and commissions, and this is not a dig at them, because they have their own policies and guidelines to follow. They don't always include a look at maintenance, but they do make decisions in design that involve spaces that parks will maintain when projects are implemented. And oftentimes, the designs are such, and implementation is such, that they're very, very difficult for parks to maintain. And they take extra time, and we're deferring maintenance in other areas of our parks to take care of some of the more intensive areas because of how they were designed. So I think I would love to see us at least recommend that we establish some standard guidelines that will benefit park maintenance and help out with the care of these areas. And I also would like to see us recommend that the City Council authorize the Park and Recreation Commission to have equal inputs with other boards and commissions involving the design of these proposed spaces or improvements or establishment of parkways and public spaces that are eventually maintained by parks. And lastly, we've had our annual IPM report, and where I don't believe at this point, and we have when the program was implemented in 2002, the IPM proponents agreed to establish a volunteer program for IPM that never got implemented. So I don't feel that going forward for FY 2013 that we need a comprehensive review of it, but I would like to see the City Council authorize staff to review the standards to identify potential practices, if any, that may result in reduced maintenance man-hours for 2013 with minimal compromise to the established IPM practices. So those are all things that I'd like to see us consider, and I'm happy to repeat any of them as we talk about the general fund budget. Ms. Longstreet?
Thank you for putting some words to these recommendations, to organizing them in thoughts. As far as the volunteer program, I don't think it's going to get off the ground without a dedicated person to it. That's just the reality of it. Those things don't materialize out of thin air. But the other thing I do want to acknowledge when we make this recommendation is that volunteers do not replace a skilled workforce. This is not a panacea, and that the current levels of service that we have cannot be maintained without a loss of horticultural resources and in our parks. So I want us to keep acknowledging that we can't go at this level, even if we get volunteers, forever. It's just not sustainable. That's all parts of our parks. It's our tree crews. It's everything. We can't. And any more than we can defer the maintenance on our buildings, we can't defer the maintenance on our plantings and our open spaces. So I wholeheartedly support a volunteer program, but I don't see it as a substitute for a skilled workforce. No.
Well, I guess I wasn't implying it was a substitute. It's a subsidy to it's additional support to the.
No, I know you don't, but I don't want to send it out from here without acknowledging that.
Right. Yes. Okay. Mr. Casebeer.
And
yes.
I agree, Ms. Longstreet, that in order to create these volunteer programs, it takes staff time and energy to just schedule, get the equipment, get the resources, get the publicity. It's a major project to, like what the Latter-day Saints were able to do. That's great. That's wonderful. They're but most people are not self-generated. They need direction and help, and that comes from our staff, and they're already overworked looking after our own projects. So don't expect wonders.
But we do have to acknowledge that we do have the Rose Society. We do have those specialized groups. But I think we need to make the statement that we can't see this lower level of manpower, employee power, go on forever. So
yeah, I think if correct me if I'm wrong, but there is a position that is how do I say this? There is staff.
Chair
that
Wiscombe
could,
and
yeah.
commissioners, in the proposed administration budget,
Right.
there is a plan to use some of the salary funds to support an hourly person to do the research, develop, and begin the implementation of the comprehensive park volunteer program.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And that's in the FY 2012 budget.
That's correct.
Yes.
And
that's
how
what I
much
thought.
money is that? Approximately? Is it a full-time person?
No, it's hourly, and actually there were two projects in specific, and that's why we're kind of like remembering the total dollars. It's the comprehensive park volunteer program, and it's the staff support for the front country trails effort. So those are two major things that we need to move forward, and it's very difficult to do with the current level of staffing. So that was our intent, to supplement current staffing with the hourly.
I feel it's time to get it started. But, yes, Mr. Burns.
I'm in total agreement. One thing that I thought is, as we were talking of the park volunteer program, we might mention as part of that, what you had mentioned at a different item, which was the IPM program, to say that we may tie this in with the IPM program to help jumpstart the IPM program, volunteer program. I think there was a group of people that really wanted to do things, but they never really. It may have just been us not following up on it. I'm not sure, but just however the staff could look at that.
Is the work that the IPM volunteers would do any different? Because I understood it to be basically weeding and that kind of thing, different than we do with any other volunteer program.
Chair Wiscombe and commissioners, I think for the sake of really tightening your recommendations, I think a park volunteer program is a park volunteer program, and all of their efforts contribute to the maintenance of the parks. I wouldn't confuse the two issues with, if you move forward with the recommendations as proposed by the chair, I wouldn't confuse the two issues. One is policy, and the other is the park volunteer program. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Yee, yes.
Chair Wiscombe, this comment doesn't really relate to the current discussion, but I have to leave and I just want to bring out a youth council concern, and that was that I know the staff has tried very hard to not cut any additional staffing, but we just want to make sure that no more staffing is cut, especially in recreation. We know, like, the city council has been talking recently about adding more police forces, and that's going to take money away from some of these things that we're doing right now. And recreation is very important to the youth, since it attracts, like the Franklin Youth Center, it attracts teens from the gang life, and so I mean it prevents violence. This is what I'm saying. So I just want to. I know the staff has been trying very hard not to cut any additional staffing, but we just want to make sure that there are no further reductions. And thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. It's great.
Thank you for that, because that was the other thing that I had down. All of these recommendations we're discussing are relating to parks, and we're not talking about recreation pretty basically at all. But I really think one of our recommendations needs to be that to acknowledge the importance of prevention and through recreation and the strengthening of our neighborhoods, and that the programs within the Parks and Recreation Department that are focused on this need to be maintained and expanded as much as possible.
I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that's very good. Are you going to be able to repeat that?
Yes, I have it written down because, you know, even if it's a status quo budget, I just don't want to ever lose track of where we used to be. I know we can't always go back there, but there were some really important things that we've given up that we don't want to give up forever.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
How do we memorialize this line of discussion?
I think what we'll do is we'll just go through it. I had a couple more recommendations. Let's just discuss those, and then maybe we can put it.
Before you leave, maybe won't Youth Council be giving their own? No. We'll make sure that Youth Council recommendation gets into ours.
Yeah.
Then.
Chair Wiscombe?
Yes.
I'm not sure if this has anything to do with what we're discussing, but I had an idea on the fundraising part, or raising money or helping in the parks. Just each park is in a neighborhood, maybe arranging on a monthly or bi-monthly or some way. That neighborhood, and everyone that lives in that neighborhood comes that weekend for that park and takes care of that park. And each family, this brings out the families that live in that neighborhood that could come and help. Another thing I was thinking about were all the name placards that are on all these trees and things around, and benches. And it's awesome that they donated money for that one time for that, but maybe we could go back to those people and say, hey, you know, you've had this tree here in this park for however long now, and maybe we'd love a donation again, another donation to help keep that tree and that area around it beautiful. Or maybe, you know, if you're the person who's got this tree, maybe you could designate yourself for the year or whatever to make sure that the area around that tree or so far around it is maintained. That's you're proud to have your name on it, then maybe you could take care of the area around it. Just ideas.
Those are good ideas, and I think if the commission goes forward with recommending that we develop a comprehensive parks volunteer program, things like, you're talking about almost like an adopt a park kind of concept. Things like that will be explored in that comprehensive volunteer program. Yeah, so that's great. Yes.
As we move forward with the discussion about other commissions and setting some aesthetics standards, Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. I think we need to address it. I think it's going to be a very difficult topic to discuss, but it needs to be done because currently we're wasting money.
Mm-hmm.
We're wasting money putting in projects that cannot be maintained.
That's absolutely correct.
And it needs to be looked at that way. And I understand other boards and commissions don't treat the city as an applicant any different than they treat any other applicant. And that, okay, I understand. But we have to figure a way to deal with it. And in that, I would like to see us look at the maintenance costs and the sources of funding, having those be identified before we get to design approval on a project. It's wonderful that we come up with some of these just beautiful projects, but if we can't maintain them, what are we doing putting the money into that level? So some of it has to have some common sense behind it. Oftentimes, we do not see these projects at all, yet they turn out to be our projects. Our staff own them in the end. So I think there needs to be some way to weigh in on that earlier as a department. However it comes out, I don't have a vision as to whether it's a commission presentation, recommendation, whether it's a staff. But having the experience of going before other commissions with these projects, it has not always been pleasant. And I think it's time that we address it somehow with a subcommittee of some sort or some council direction on how we want our city to look, not just when we put the project in, but 5 years down the line. So,
or even 6 months down the line.
In some cases, yes.
In some cases, that's been the case. So I'm fully in agreement with you. I don't know if what I put forth is the best recommendation we can make, but my goal is to, I think the same as yours, Bibi, and that's to get this out there. We can't continue to defer maintenance in our parks without making some changes. We need to make some changes.
And this goes a little bit farther because there's times when it's come to this commission that we're not involved in the general plan update or whatever. And personally, I feel like nobody's really asked at times. And I don't mean our staff. I mean, our opinions aren't often considered, and yet it's like I've been told we're not advocating enough. But when we advocate, we've pretty much been shut down. So I would like to see us have a better working relationship with some of those other commissions. And really, it is a passion for all of us to be here to do this. So I guess I would simplify maybe the recommendation to be that City Council authorize establishing a subcommittee or to investigate this issue, design guidelines. Help me with this part. How we
to investigate standardizing. Do you investigate?
I want more involvement of the Parks and Recreation Department in project development and maintenance standards.
Right.
And funding.
Okay.
I don't know.
Recommend the City Council authorize. Did you have something, Mr. Burns?
Well, no, I was just the same thing as how do besides just saying developing the project, but developing the project and looking at the long view of how is it going to be maintained, because you can spend the same amount of money on a project that will cost a lot to maintain or one that won't cost a lot to maintain. And I think it's something we as commissioners, we notice it, and that's not the direction the other commissions have been, that's not their mandate. So maybe we just need to let them know that it needs to be brought up. And I don't know how to do that without stepping on them. You know, I don't.
Chair Wiscombe and commissioners, I think rather than trying to solve how it happens, if your recommendation can stay up on the top level, that just talks about what the need is, and that it needs council direction to move forward. Because whether it's appropriate for the staff in the various departments to, you know, work out some plan, or it's appropriate for council to establish a subcommittee that involves members of the different design review boards, I think that's something that by the time, you know, if council wants to pursue that, then that's where that discussion can take place.
Right.
I think your recommendation, if you stay at the level that why it's a concern and that it needs council attention, direction to make some changes.
Okay.
And I do think, because there have been members of the public that have come and spoken before City Council as to this issue, it's not a new issue. So I think your recommendation will be reaching people that kind of are familiar with what you're saying. So, but that's as you structure your recommendation. And then I also wanted to add, as you're crafting your recommendations, typically what we do as staff, as we're preparing the memo that will go to council with your recommendations, is we go through the minutes and we pull out the key comments that it seemed like there was consensus from commissioners on some of those comments, and we will craft those. We'll have the recommendation, and then we'll have the comments which help to explain the positions. So I don't think you have to worry that you get every word in there. So we'll be able to communicate a little bit more of your desire in that way.
Okay. So I'm thinking here that maybe recommend that City Council authorize establishing standard design guidelines to be used in design of public spaces that have aesthetic benefit and are easy to maintain, and leave it at that, and then perhaps
that might be. Is that enough? Does that address the issue, do you think, that we're talking about?
Yes, but I think that Commissioner Longstreet's point of having the annual maintenance cost and funding source identified as part of the project before it's approved is a key component.
I agree with that, but I was thinking that perhaps that should go into a segment where the commission or the department should be able to have, and perhaps it's at the commission level with staff recommendation, should be able to. I think that I would say, this is what I'm going to say. Recommend that the City Council authorize that the Parks and Recreation Commission have equal input with other boards and commissions in decisions involving designs of proposed improvements to or establishment of parkways and public spaces that will be maintained by the Parks Department. Maintenance costs and sources of funding associated with said improvements should be required.
I'm going to disagree.
Okay.
Because we are not a design review board.
Okay.
We do not have the capabilities of that. We do not have the people on our commission who can do it. You're a landscape architect, but nobody else is.
Right.
We run into a problem with this with trees, oftentimes when we don't accept the recommendations of our arborists over safety issues. So I do not want to see us, and this becomes really difficult for us. And we've gone through it on several occasions when we suddenly are turned into a design review board without the training to be a design review board.
Yeah.
So I don't think we want to muddle that too much, but I think we want somehow in this process these issues to be addressed. We inherit this project, so our staff needs to be able to say what they can maintain and can't maintain. And that's what I think that's where we're going with it.
Right.
So I would say the design guidelines or something like that, and that we be considering the maintenance costs and sources of funding. There was a time when we built things, and we didn't build them unless we could identify the source of ongoing funding. When Parque de los Niños came, I remember, we all thought, things would go on forever, but that funding for maintenance of that park was built into it, and for a long time it had a private contract, if I'm correct, to go. I think there were some different monies they brought in. No private contract, Santos says. But I remember we talked about how we would maintain it because we were adding to the workload of ongoing staff. And I think that's what we really are trying to address is how do we keep that balance? So we can't keep adding parkways and medians and all of this without addressing where that funding comes from to get a body out there to fix it.
I agree with that, and I did think about the fact that we are not a design review board, but I was specifically thinking of East Cabrillo, where design alternatives were presented to HLC that would have made the project easier to maintain, and they were rejected. So,
yes, and that's what we want to get
trying
across.
to get around that to get, and perhaps the way around it is to just authorize establishing standard design guidelines to be used in the design of public spaces that have aesthetic benefit and are easy to maintain, and project proponents must present annual maintenance costs and sources of funding involving designs of proposed improvements to or establishment of parkways and public spaces that are maintained by parks.
I think you're getting too many words in there. But.
Okay.
Let me just...
I'm trying to get in your... Yeah.
Well, I think both of you have given staff
enough. Okay. Without having to...
They know where we're trying to come from. So let's otherwise we could spend another hour.
Yeah.
And
okay.
And I need to talk louder.
And
okay,
Chair Wiscombe and commissioners, and I realize and appreciate the not wanting to do a lot of wordsmithing, and it is important for staff to make sure that the words that go into the written recommendations accurately reflect the desires of the commission. So we will have the minutes to do that, and if I might then ask that as part of your recommendations, the commission authorizes the chair to review the draft and approve the draft based on the recommendations discussed by the commission at this meeting, and then, that will close that.
Great. That's a much better approach. Okay. good. And does anyone have any comments on the IPM possibly identifying potential practices that may result in reduced maintenance man-hours for FY 2013? How does anyone do?
No,
Yes, Mr. Burns?
I think we should ask staff to ask City Council to do that. I don't know where it'll go, but we really need to find out if we really don't have the money.
Great. Okay. Okay. So I think, anyone else have any other? Yes.
And just in the recreation side, just what do we have issues we need to address? I just want us to take a minute to think about it.
Well, I think that the commission should have something to say about in these tough economic times, we have increased demand for free or reduced cost services. And I know that we have reduced the amount of free services that we offer. That's correct? So I think we should express our concern for that. Mr. Casper, yeah.
Well, along with the recreation side of this, I'd like to see a statement that emphasizes the need and importance to maintain our neighborhood outreach services, social programs, recreational programs that are directed to the less fortunate, and don't balance the budget on the backs of these people.
That's very well said. Thank you. That's,
and not only don't balance the budget, but realize the cost savings to us as a community, that we have the programs available in our neighborhoods that prevent violence, that our department is a complete partner in that area with all the other agencies and provides, tremendous service. So,
and if I could just add that the programs that we provide for the youth of our community will save in the future police, jails, drug, all these things that we're spending huge amounts of money on, where we can spend money today on the young people, it'll save us in the future.
I think that's very good. I think that's exactly what we should say as a commission. And we do have a concern for the cuts that have taken place in the recreation area, and staff, and commend them on the job that they've done. I mean, but our concern is out there. We can't afford to lose more.
yeah, I'm going to try a motion that we accept. The commission accepts the general fund budget and fees and charges as presented, with the recommendations that will be crafted out of our comments, and that we would like to acknowledge the hard work of all of our staff who have risen to the occasion in these tough times and moved programs forward and been innovative, both in parks and recreation. And we are very proud of this department.
Second.
And commissioners, if I could just maybe have the commission discuss one minor modification. I think you need to make a recommendation to City Council. So your statement says that you accept the budget, but I think that if
We
you
recommend the budget to council. How's that? Is that better?
I just want to make sure that in there is a recommendation to City Council.
Yes, please. I will change my motion.
That if you're accepting the budget and that's what you're saying, that you
We accept it
recommend,
and
perhaps you might think about, that the Park and Recreation Commission recommends that the budget be approved as submitted, and then the other things. So something
Yes.
along that lines. I just
clean it up.
Second accepts that modification.
Okay. Do we need to add something about the chair reviewing the recommendations? The commission will accept the chair's review of the recommendations before they go to City Council. Do we need to add that to the motion?
It can be a separate motion.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that carries unanimously.
So I would like to thank with gratitude our staff for what they've done for the last year with the limited funds that we have and what we've had for the last couple of years. So that's a comment. And then a motion is that the chair has the ability with staff to craft some recommendations from what we've already discussed today. And we will approve those without having the rest of the commission having read them. Is that a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. Okay.
Chair Wiscombe?
Yeah.
Just for clarity's sake, if staff could just go through the specific recommendations. I'm not going to go through how they're worded. I just want to concur that these are the recommendations that the full commission would like included. One is the support for the comprehensive park volunteer program and the support for staff additions to implement that program in fiscal year 2013 and future years. And we'll pull from the language that the document that you looked at this evening. The second one is having to do with the recommendation on the standard design guidelines for public spaces. A second recommendation related to that is and I'll have to go back and look at the comments, but dealing with the funding for maintenance and funding sources, and we'll look at the comments related to that, but I'm just looking for concurrence that you do want a recommendation that includes that. Just because my notes are on this page, the recommendation, both supporting the Youth Council recommendation, perhaps, that came to you as a way of incorporating that into no further reductions on the recreation programming side, and we'll include in that the comments on prevention and strengthening of neighborhoods, and et cetera. So looking for concurrence. And going back to the park side, requesting the review of IPM standards to identify potential practices and that recommendation. So those are the recommendations that I heard, that I took notes on, that you would like to go forward as part of your recommendation of the general fund budget. And then to clarify, it was also the general fund fees and charges schedule as part of that.
Okay.
and the Chase Pond Park RDA money.
I believe that we handled that when the commission did a separate recommendation on the general fund,
For the
on
capital.
the capital
Yeah,
fund.
capital budget, yeah. Okay. Thank you all. It really, just, you're all great. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.